Good morning, Tracy Currington. How you doing this morning?
I am well today. First episode of a brand new year. Certainly excited to be here with you, Paul. Couldn't think of any other place I'd rather be.
That's awesome. I can think of a few places. Not that I'd rather be, but I'd rather be doing this from. How's that?
That's
It's
yes. I
it's it,
uh,
it's
yeah, a beach, a ski resort, something like that.
awesome.
Welcome
So,
everyone. Go ahead, Paul.
oh, I'm sorry. I was just gonna say, what are we talking about today, Tracy?
Well, you've heard it said that if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always gotten. And I was reading this morning, Paul, from the management guru Peter Drucker, and in his book on it's the Daily Drucker, 366 days with Peter Drucker. I thought, in the spirit of a leap year, we get an extra 24 hours this year. I thought I might pick up that book and read it on a daily. And get this, it kind of goes right along with what we're going to be talking about today. All organizations, he says, need a discipline that makes them face up to reality. He says eventually every activity becomes obsolete. I mean, the things that worked for you may not work for you, or maybe they were never working for you. And I think probably one of the greatest weaknesses that I've found in my own life and a lot of business leaders that I've spoke to is they lack they're unable, or they have the inability to stop doing what's not working. And so, like, we were talking about this even before we went live about what's not working. You mentioned you just get into failure faster. You just, like, when it's not working, you're like, let's just work harder at it. And so I think today we're going to be discussing a little bit on the thread of innovating, and of course our podcast title, pivoting, learning to pivot on that. So the title of the episode, Paul, you've got that title.
Yeah, understanding revenue projections. So
Yeah, we're
I
rolling.
almost want to jump out of the title and kind of dive into what you just said because I'm
But
just
I
making
think
a
it goes
note here.
hand in hand. I mean, like when you're trying to project your revenue, I think everything begins. I heard one leader say one time, the rarest form of knowledge is self knowledge, and I think that's where it begins. Like, reflecting back on the old year, I think that's where you have to start. What went right, what went wrong, and then, like, if we're going to project revenue for this year, we have to find out where we are. Kind of like the old malls, the malls that, like, Amazon's buying up to make hubs. They're closing down malls. But whenever you walked in that, one of the first things you did is found that directory. I mean, if it's 3-story mall, you got to find out where you are in relationship to wherever you want to go, wherever you want to shop, where you want to be. And I think if you're going to project something, you need a starting place.
All right, I've got a statement for you. Would you agree with
Okay.
unlimited time and unlimited resources? You can accomplish anything.
Unlimited time, unlimited resources. Ooh, okay. I love that. But I think it's kind of like unlimited resources, unlimited time. Like, if you had all the clocks in the world, you had all this time, but you don't have a compass pointing to the right direction. If you're
Well,
not
that's
clear on your direction,
it's you're assuming the direction is there in that statement. Would
okay,
you
okay. So
agree
unlimited,
or disagree with if you had unlimited time and unlimited resources that you could accomplish anything? The accomplish anything is the direction.
ooh, okay.
This is a yes or
Unlimited
no.
time, unlimited. Yes, yes. My initial is if you have direction? Yes. The answer is yes.
I think you're trying to over chew on it. Okay, so really, because we're talking, I mean, ultimately with your opening and everything, we're really talking about setting goals for 2024 and
Mhm.
accomplishing them. And with unlimited time and unlimited resources, of course, we could accomplish anything.
Sure.
The problem is that we don't have unlimited time and unlimited resources. So
Mhm.
for any goal that we put together, we've got to have what I call the three pillars of success. It's unlimited mindset, unlimited mind, right? Time,
Mm.
resources, money, right? So now we have limitations on everything but the mindset. Okay, we only have
Mm-hmm.
so much to work with, and we have so much time to work with. So any goal that we set for the end of the year, the thing we need to understand is the amount of money that we're going to have to get to the goal, how we're going to put the resources together, and the time. Now
Mm-hmm.
we can maximize time, we can multiply it with people and technology, right? We
Mm-hmm.
can apply people and technology to hit the goal. If we're hitting, it's a monetary goal. Of course, we're talking about revenue. As we get money in, we're increasing the amount of money that we have to put to that. It's understanding where the goal is and when and what resources we need to put in place to get there. Does that make
Mm-hmm.
sense?
Oh, I love it. Well, and the practical way of of strategizing that. Like, okay, I've got this revenue projection. How do I do that? And I love what you said, you shared with me here recently about reverse engineering that and what that looks like when you break it all down, right? And like reduce
Right.
it to its least amount of terms.
Right. And companies do that. I mean, medium-sized, large-sized companies that they did this in December, maybe even November. They sat down and they strategized, you know, 2024, what they're going to accomplish, what their goals are. They kind of know what their numbers are before the end of the year, if
Mm,
their fiscal year is ending in December, and then they project what they're going to do for next year, and that works all the way back. So you got to set the goal for the end of the year. You got to break that up into specific initiatives that are going to get to that ultimate goal, and then apply the resources, the cash, the people, and ultimately the bottom line is everybody in the organization has to believe you can get there. The mindset has to be right
mhm.
to get to that goal, and
Yeah,
and that's uh, kind of the thing. So, what do you think?
I love it. I just got this kind of like this image of the if you've ever seen the old movie Ben Hur, Charlton Heston. He was like
Wow,
a hero of mine. And when he's at the oar and they're all rowing, and I was just thinking about if everybody in the organization that boat, if they have their oars and they're all rowing in different directions, they are not going anywhere. And so the belief
that,
has to be that like together, like the word team, TEAM, together everyone accomplishes more. And if we can row together on this thing, that belief, we're going to get there faster than we ever imagined because that level of belief.
that's awesome. I feel a little weird that I didn't know that acronym for team.
Oh, see, okay. Man, I gave something to Paul. Woo! You ready to
Yeah,
dive in on this?
full transparency. I'm just sitting there. Wow, that's I'm a big. I make acronyms out of everything. I cannot believe I did not know that's what that
Oh,
acronym was.
I'm
But that's
so
great.
honored.
That's great. Um, so let's kind of draw it out so
Let's
that
do
we
it.
understand. Let's say that we're a business that did $500,000 last year,
Mhm.
right? We're a small
Got it.
business, just getting rolling. We did 500, um, and we're a little aggressive this year. We want to do a mill. We want to double the business.
Mhm.
You know, like a 50% increase year over year if we can't hit more. But in this particular situation, so the number's a million, right?
Mhm.
And so let's say the average cost of the product, make it a product, right? Make it easy,
Okay.
is $500, right? We've got one product line because we just started last year. So Trace, what do you think the next step is there? Okay, we dropped this number down. We know what we're hitting. We all agree. How do we work that back?
Yeah. So I mean, like I mean, like you want to make $1 million in revenue, and you've got a product that sells for $500, how many $500 products do I have to sell to make it $1 million?
All right. We got Gavin on the calculator behind the scenes. He's gonna drop these numbers for us, so we don't have to do them in our head.
So that's 2,000. Is that right?
Yeah, that's about right. So we need 2,000 new customers. So last year we did 1,000 customers based on our marketing and understanding our conversion rate, and all that. We need to add additional 1,000. So, by the way, I got 2 salespeople that are like cranking it. Right? They cranked out that $500,000. Boom, boom, boom. All right, they're at capacity. So what's the thing I got to think about as I'm putting this number up?
If they're at capacity of 500,000, the logical step would be I got 2 guys that can do 500,000. I mean, logically, it would make sense to say I need 2 more guys to do another 500,000. But I was just thinking about when you were saying that, like this image of, remember the Clydesdale horse analogy? That like one Clydesdale can pull 8,000 pounds by himself. 2 Clydesdales can pull 24,000 pounds. So like when you get 2, there's this triple effect. And I know you were in this space a whole lot longer than I've ever been in that particular space. If you add one more salesperson to that team of 2. Now the capacity level the ceiling has raised significantly.
Possibly.
Do you actually need 4?
So that's what we would call a synergistic study, right? Can I apply a little bit more leverage to get, and your Clydesdale thing is perfect, but we want to understand the synergies that can be created as we add certain people. So we were going to go there, but I don't think we can go there on the sales side because the sales guys are at capacity. It's almost a 1-to-1, right? If they're doing, now I can create efficiencies by making them better salespeople, right? So here's where you would get to that. If I've got 2 salespeople that are at capacity right now, but they have a 40% closing ratio based on the amount of leads that come in, there's room for improvement there, right? If I can
40%.
get both of those guys up to 70% closing ratio, then they are actually improving their efficiency. And even though they're at capacity, they can increase because they're better at their jobs.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Right?
Love it.
So that's efficiency. Right? That's really what we're talking about there is efficiency. If I got 100 leads come in and both sales guys are closing 50, they're at 50% close ratio. But if I can increase through sales training or through a change in sales process that improves the closing ratio, and I can get them both up to 70%, I've increased revenue. I've dropped my cost of customer acquisition. And I'm just more efficient with the leads that I'm getting in. So that's one way to increase that revenue to hit that $1 million this year. So if I move both guys up to 70%, that still doesn't get me to $1 million.
Correct. So I'm just thinking like one little thing I want to come back to the 70% one about the efficiency, also effectiveness. Those two kind of go hand in hand.
Right.
Like how can you make a salesperson more effective? They've got to have better qualified leads. So they had all these leads that they were converting at 40%. So yeah, training them, making them better sales guys, but also improving the leads that are coming in would be one way. I think Lou Holtz, coach, said, I'm a better coach when I have better players. So like on the training side of it, I mean, like so true. I mean, like I'm the greatest coaches, Tom Landry's and other people in other sports things, for the Bulls and stuff like that. I mean, like who would they have been? Phil Jackson, were it not for the players that were on their team.
Oh, absolutely. The thing is that I mean, really, and I know we're getting off in the weeds on the sales side here, but I want to add this to it is you have to do root cause analysis here.
Hmm.
Okay, is it the salesperson or is it the sales process?
Ooh, I love it. Yeah, it's good.
Okay, because in fact, I had a client last week. We were talking. They're a little frustrated with their salesperson, and they only have one. It's a small client. And we got really into the weeds in the call, and I asked him a ton of questions about the sales guy and the sales process. And I found out that they had a 12-page contract. Okay, it's like
With
this
each sales.
monster
Wow.
with each sale, right? So
Oh my goodness. Wow.
it's a high ticket service, and it had a 12-page contract in there. And I said, "Woo!" So you're now you've got the legal side that slows the sale down. This has been true throughout my career in enterprise.
Hmm.
I could close a deal, and then I've got 2 months of back and forth with the lawyers in the game.
Yeah.
And what
That's a
we
slow
decided,
sales cycle.
yeah, we added a step to their. So what we ended up doing last week, and this will absolutely work. I've done it with others. We added a step into their sales process, and the step was an LOI. So it was an LOI or a proposal that needed to be signed and agreed upon prior to a contract so that all the pieces in there would be in. This is what we're going to put in contractual. We're agreeing to the project, the scoping, what we'd call scoping. Do you agree to this or don't agree to this? And when that's signed, it actually it changes the game a little bit because psychologically the prospect is now signing a document that he's moving forward, okay,
Mm,
without getting into the legal t's and c's. And
hmm.
then we get into the legal t's and c's. So it actually makes them commit without the contract, and then you get into the contract phase.
So signing of the contract is more of a formality because the
it
commitment level's
becomes
already.
it becomes like the sealer in between the bricks,
Mm, I
right?
love that.
We've laid the bricks. Now we're sealing them up, and
Ooh, that's
that's
good.
and he needs that step because what happens in the deal and in enterprise, that the deal can stall, but not only that, it rots. Okay,
Mm,
it's time that other people can get in the door. It's time that other people can change their perspective, change their mindset, change a lot
mm,
of things that can happen in that, that legal negotiation
yeah,
step in the deal. So we actually add a step to the process to
that is
firm
so
up the
interesting.
relationship,
Yeah.
and then move it on. So, and going back to the point of this is really about um, taking a look at the root cause of why those deals aren't coming through. It's not always the sales guy. The sales guy may be the greatest sales guy in the world, but if he's got errored process underneath him that he
Yeah.
has to do, that can impact his closing ratio.
Yeah.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so
That's so good. And slows down the sales cycle.
yeah,
And,
and
and
it's funny that I've learned over the years sometimes slowing things down from a control standpoint, like adding the LOI in there, speeds things up.
yeah. It
So it's
sounds
totally inverse.
counterintuitive.
It is.
But
It
like, I mean,
does.
well, but everything. I mean, like if you sit down and don't just start pouring concrete on the ground, survey the ground first.
Yeah.
If you spend the time researching and developing what's under, is there a spring under this ground? I mean, like just surveying it, flattening it out and everything before you start putting pier and beams on the ground to build the house,
Well,
you're going to save a lot of time.
it's intuitive because in any sales cycle, one of the key pieces is getting agreement along the way. We call them
Mm,
trial closes, right?
yeah,
This is
right.
just this fortifies agreement
Mm,
prior to the final sign off. So you're
yeah.
just adding a sign off in. They've committed, and now it's just about T's and C's. It's
Boy, you
not
know what?
about the deal anymore.
I'm thinking right now, Paul. I know we're talking about understanding the revenue projection and setting that target first, and we dove into the sales. We really need to bring that out for our viewers and our listeners. That there's a lot of depth that we have to uncover on that one. That's a great one. That's an entire probably series.
Yeah, there's and that's really like getting deep into your sales process and understanding your customer base and ultimately how they buy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because your sales process with your avatar, your target market, if you can align your sales process with their buying process, you're that much tighter with them through the sales process. I
Yeah.
didn't want to use the word process again, but I guess I had
Yeah.
to.
Well. Yeah.
Like, what's another word for process?
Okay.
Um,
We've got to get. So in 2023. 6 months in, we did 250K, let's say. Another 6 months,
yep.
we did another 250K, gave us 500. Now we're talking about by improving the sales process and ensuring, looking at those two parts, the salesperson and the sales process, giving time on both sides in the first 6 months. Now we want to be at 500K. Last 6 months, I'm just logically speaking, the last 6 months, we want to be at, with December push and stuff like that, we want to be at another 500K to make $1 million. What do we need to do next?
So I would disagree with that. Okay. And this is where a lot of um, people who are planning their next year miss this point.
Okay.
There is going to be a ramping period. It is not suddenly you jump from, doing 500K last year and you jump from the first month, you all of a sudden jump from 25 to 50K.
Mm-hmm.
It's not reality because you need to hire another salesperson. You need to get marketing in place to generate the leads, understanding the conversion ratio on that lead generation and going to. So it's a ramp period Q1 to Q2. So I always kind of look at 20%, 40%, and then 40%. So Q1 is 20%.
Yep.
You're getting another 20 to 30% Q2, and then the bulk, because now you should be ramped at 6 months. The bulk of that money is coming in Q3, Q4.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you literally ramp it because depending on the industry, I mean, there are some industries it takes 2 weeks to train a salesperson, and a month and a half later they can be at capacity. But I
Mm-hmm.
always assume things are more complicated. You're looking at 6 months to get a salesperson really started and really comfortable in their skin selling your product. So you need to really understand how you're bringing the lead flow in, how you're turning up the marketing dollars, because you're going to have to increase the expenditure of dollars to gain revenue. You have to increase expenses from a marketing and sales perspective to get those incremental jumps in revenue. And then we have to look at the delivery side, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because do I need more people to deliver? That's where we do your synergy study, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, so we're shipping out a product at $500 a piece. Our delivery is really assembly and shipping. So do I need more people to assemble because I've got more product, or are my processes not at capacity yet? So
Mm-hmm.
that's a question. Do I need more guys in the shipping room, to ship out an extra, double the shipping per day? Well, my guys are in the back. They spend half their day sweeping the floor, so I've got capacity there. So that's where now that synergy goes. I can go to that $1 million with the same amount of people over on my ops side because we're not at capacity yet. My
Mm-hmm.
big question for this year is really all about the sales side. So
Mm-hmm.
I can definitely work into that. So it's a this is such an important exercise done in December, and hopefully everybody has done it, and we're kind of closing it out. But that you're in the room, and your department heads are going, okay, to hit that number, I need this, and
Yeah.
I need this, and I need this, and I need this, and we got to do this. And then you set up your goals and your rocks and all of that stuff to hit those goals at certain time periods, so you know when to flip the switch and throw out the resume requests or the job requests, to get more people. Or, a lot of people don't think about this. I might need to get a loan first quarter to
Mm-hmm.
fund the growth,
Yeah.
so that I can do the second quarter. How's that going to impact? Um, and is the ROI going to be there? We're probably going to take a hit and drop our margin the first 2 quarters because we're expending so much, and then
Mm-hmm.
regain that margin on the back quarters, because we also need to understand, when we do all this, what's our free cash flow going to be at the end, or for some companies it's EBITDA, earnings before distributions and taxes, and all that good kind of stuff. So we kind of need to look at all of that, and build a model for the year, so that we know what trigger points are going to make us do what when. So that goes back to the original statement of mindset, time, and resources,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and the expenditure of those.
And that mindset has to be clear if you're going to go drop a loan. I mean, because I think that you can dive into, from that launchpad, you can dive into the risk management side. That's also a topic that we'd like to discuss. But like, okay, we're going to do this. We're gambling on ourselves. We're betting on ourselves in Q1 that by the time we get to this, 6 months from now, we've got that new guy trained. I mean, we're making the revenue to where this loan was a good stewardship of our resources that we have coming in, because our margins have dropped in the first 6 months.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
One thing I want to share, just and it's not necessarily off topic, but it's just another way of looking at, when we're talking about the processes and the person. I work a lot, as you know, with quick service restaurants, and a lot of those buildings, the facility itself, they were only built to sustain a certain amount of revenue. So there's a restaurant in our town that it was built to house about 2.5 to 3 million a year. And in the last 10 years, it'll celebrate its 10th year this year, actually. And in 10 years, it's now 10.5 million. So now think about, like they went from 48 on staff, full roster, one shift would be about 48. Now they're at 98. So I mean, like they got now more team, more volume. They've had to double and triple their drive-through coming in, add more concrete, add more parking and everything, because the building itself was only built to accommodate 2.5, 3 million, because the projection was probably in this area, we're only going to, I don't know how they do that based upon the traffic, the inflow, the town size, what the expectations are. But in 10 years, they've more than tripled. And so they had to grow. So one restaurant that I'm working with right now, they doubled their revenue from last year to this year. I'm so happy for them. And they're like, I don't know how we can do any more volume. They've actually hit their lid. Because they don't have room to expand their drive-through. And so by making one little tweak, we moved their beverage dispenser. Was from where it was to moving it over to where one person right now they got one person doing cash, window, and beverages. We moved their beverage dispenser over, just that little move, to where they have one person only on beverages. It freed the other person up. And now just that little 20 seconds they earned back on every guest. Now their ceiling went whoop. And now they've got room for an extra, $3K a day. And that adds up over time, just by making little, environmental changes. I just wanted to throw that out there, that we just don't leave any stone unturned.
I think it's an important point, because a lot of people, you hear this, and some companies, we've been doing it that way for 20 years. That's immediate pop in my
Yes.
head going, this is a good time to look at your processes because
Yep.
you haven't touched them in 20 years.
Yeah.
Um, the thing is that you should be reviewing your processes at least minimum once every quarter. Okay, because you get inspired by what's going on. And I would say to that company that they should have seen that coming. They should have
Mm-hmm.
known their lid, right? And it goes to that planning. They sat down every year at the end of the year and go, okay, we just increased revenue by X this year. What happens if we do that again? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
this drives right back into risk. Okay, we're at the risk of hitting our ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
So, a couple of things we can look at to do that. You did an awesome job by looking at their process first before you did any real, changes. You sat down, hey, maybe we could gain a little bit of efficiency here if we just move this here. I used to be in the restaurant industry, as you know, and I can tell you that I have configured a kitchen twice in the matter of 4 months to gain efficiencies
Yeah.
on the line at a gourmet restaurant. We reconfigured it a couple of times because we had guys bumping into each other. There
Bottlenecks.
was crosstalk. We did a cross kitchen, and then we did a full straight line, and then we went back to a modified straight cross kitchen, and that was the key, because when the last garnish was put on, it was on the serving rack,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it ended up that we avoided hiring 2 more cooks because of the efficiency of the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's a great example. I love kitchen examples because it's easy to see.
Yep.
Um, there's other things. I watched, Chick-fil-A here in Minnesota reconfigure because they knew pre-pandemic, they anticipated, the inside dining rooms were closing. They needed
Yep.
to triple capacity going through the drive-through, and they had no time to build. Right, that was an unknown consequence. I mean, there was just it was an unknown risk, I should say.
Yep.
They had no idea a pandemic was coming, and they were set. Their dining room was the right size. It's definitely a $10 million business in that one location. They changed to a double, even though they had one window. They changed to a double drive-through. They set up stanchions outside with umbrellas, and they had people taking orders out on the side, and they changed their process to fit the thing, and that was unknown. Now 2 years later, guess what? They've got a triple out there that's
Yep.
completely full, and the dining room, because they had the ability to do that. So in the strategic planning process every year, if you're doing 30%, and it sounds like they did 100%
Mm-hmm.
increase in revenue, you have to anticipate, okay, we can grow it another 100%. What is it going to take for us
Yep.
to deliver
Mm-hmm.
on that? What are our risks involved in that, right? If we, because the last thing you want is start turning customers away.
Mm-hmm.
If you turn customers away, they don't come back.
Yeah. Well,
And those may be your long-standing customers.
and coming back to I loved your piece on mindset and belief and having everybody on belief. I mean, like, what do we believe is going to be able to move us to that $1 million mark? It's almost like coming back to the drawing board and say, hey, what are we unwilling to do to hit that $1 million mark? Like, well, this worked for us last year. Yeah, but catering won't work. I mean, catering went away in 2020. It was done there, and then it really hasn't come back like it was doing before. So, like, just considering, like you said, I mean, we were. I loved your analogy with restaurant, the Chick-fil-A, because Truett Cathy always preached restaurant is restoration. You're refreshing, you're restoring. He never said, do you need more drink? He talked about may I refresh your beverage? Just the language alone, because you were in a dining room, you were a slower pace, but that all changed. And so Chick-fil-A had to be
Yeah.
willing, even though that was their history, that was their heritage, they had to be willing to adjust and be flexible if they were going to go. And that's what made this particular restaurant was a Chick-fil-A. That's what allowed it to 3x the target that they never thought they were able to hit before in that area, and double and triple their drive through.
So getting back to the point of risk analysis, so what if you were to define it, Tracy? What would you define risk analysis?
Where are the parts that could slow us down, could really hinder us when we analyze okay, we've got this idea, we want to do this, this, and this because we believe in this, this, and this. What are the things? What could happen? So when I'm thinking about risk, I'm thinking about all the things what are the possibilities? What could happen? And I hate to get too deep in, like me personally. I'm squeezing a trigger, see what falls out. And my wife is not that person. She's like, let's wait a minute. She'll hang out in the risk analysis a little bit long. But I think you're just analyzing potential risks. What are the things that could happen in this? How would you define it?
Yeah, I would say it's taking the time to step back, review your plan, and start identifying the unknowns.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then you've got two things. You've got the unknowns, and then you have the unknown unknowns. You have the known unknowns and the unknown unknowns.
And you don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know. And the real thing is to start. We take a look at an issue or a possible risk, and then we weight it. Right? Is this going to be catastrophic if this happens? And the probability of it happening.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if it's a low probability, low weight, we can build a contingency for it, or is it going to create a complete pivot point in the way we do things? And if it's a high probability, we should probably not go in that direction and get creative wrapped around it. So we need to understand. So in your restaurant perspective, I've got a drive-through restaurant, and we want to hit that $1 million mark. We go, okay, we need to build a second drive-through, except that the first drive-through is 5 feet from the curb in the main road, and there's no room to build the drive-through. Yep. Right. So now that probability is extremely high, right? It's 100%, and it's catastrophic, right? To that revenue. So how am I going to work around that or build a contingency to do that? Do I do an inline double where I'm serving every other? So there's a lot of ways I can deal with that risk, because I can build it possibly an inline double where I've got 2 locations taking orders, and then we're skipping cars and we're serving 2 cars at the same time through 2 separate windows to increase the efficiency of a single line process.
Putting outside order takers there to make it a little bit more effective, and food carriers, expediters on the outside that are delivering food to the cars that are there. You got 3 in a parking spot, that you're delivering food to get them out of the drive. I mean, I think it comes back to like what you said. Do you believe that there's a way? Okay, maybe pouring more concrete when you're 5 feet from the edge of your property is not the way, but there is a way.
Yeah. Adding a 5% discount for them to come into the restaurant and pick it up and order through the app. Right. It's
an app for your phone for carry out.
So the big thing is if you don't do this exercise and really take a look at it, you're flying blind, right? I'm going to do $1 million next year. Great. All right, we're just going to do the same thing, and the numbers.
Hope is not a strategy.
Hope is not a strategy. Exactly. So, and with a strategy, you have to identify what could go wrong. So once again, that you're ready, armed, holstered, and ready to have that fight if it happens.
Mm-hmm.
And otherwise, you're reactive. And in this way, you can see indicators that risk is going to happen, and be putting things in place to move around it. But you can't do that unless you identify the risks in your growth plan or your strategic plan for the year. So you really need to sit down, get out of your business. If you're, solopreneur or small staff, or if you've got, four heads of state, you have to sit down and do the strategic planning for the year. It's not really strategic. It's tactical. Within the year, it's tactical planning. Okay,
Yeah.
it's just 2024's plan, and hopefully to get to an overall strategic goal in 5 years, right? So each year builds up. But definitely, what worked this year, 2023. Let's keep doing it. What didn't work, let's find a better way to do it.
Right. And how
Here's
can
the
we
number.
improve on what did work?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Without breaking it.
Yes,
Right.
exactly. Yeah.
I've
Right.
seen that. I've seen
Right.
that people break. They're trying to over improve a proven process,
You
and that
overthought it. Yeah.
don't fix what's not broken. Fix what is broken first,
Mm-hmm.
and then um, working your way back to resources and cash flow to execute on that plan.
Yeah. One highlight I want to have, because I know we're coming down to the end, but one highlight I want to have here is like one thing that like our viewers would know from you and I. We've never talked about what are other people doing. Like we're not. It's not other people's business. It's our business. We did 500 last year. We want to do 1,000,000. I don't care what other people are doing. Other people are retracting. We want to expand. I mean, it's a great opportunity when you're looking at strategic planning, looking at, okay, where's our economy? Oh, the economy is going down. Okay, then we should like kind of, tighten our belts and keep it tight and stuff. Instead of doing that, let's dominate. Here's an opportunity that just to the business model we were talking about, that's what they did through a
So
pandemic. They reached out.
yeah, and I look at it more this way: other people are contracting, or people are contracting, and they're not spending money. Let's be the place that they do spend their money.
Yeah.
Let's be the place where they empty their wallet, because we're providing such a great service or a great product that we're necessary in their lives,
Yeah.
because we impact them in a way that makes them want to come back and do business with us, even if they're stretching on their last dollar. That we become a necessity in their life.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be that good, right?
Yeah.
Let's be where they spend their money.
I'm glad we added that component to this episode about the customer, about our service to them. What do they deserve? They deserve our best. And like we got a $1 million projection, a revenue projection that we have out there. But what separates us from anyone else, I mean, we want to dominate in our sector. And what's going to dominate is returning customers. That's a satisfied customer. How do you know? They came back. I mean, they're now a raving fan. They're an ambassador for us. And so, like, it's not just one guy didn't just buy one $500 product from us to make up that 2,000. That guy came back and bought two more, and he referred three other people to buy three more $500. I mean, like, that's because of the service, because that's our commitment. I'm glad we added that component in there about serving to the finest capacity and excellence our customer base.
Absolutely. Well, my friend, we're at the end.
I love this is iron sharpening iron here, and I know that I feel refreshed when I get to get on a call with you and explore these topics.
It's a blast. I love interacting with you too, Tracy. It's always thought generating, and I hope everybody gets their thoughts generating wrapped around what they're going to do for 2024 if they haven't already planned it out. And the one thing I want to leave you with is, well, it's not something you stick on the shelf and never look at again. This should be a living thing that you review every week so that you are ensuring that you're executing on your plan. And if you do run into those risks, that you are mitigating those risks and having contingency plans wrapped around those roadblocks. And ultimately, if you got to pivot, you got to pivot, but don't change the goal.
That's right.
Just pivot how you're going to get there. All right.
Yes.
So with that, we'll see you next Thursday.